Keep it WFO to MX Unfiltered. This is Creative Lines from the Paris Supercross 2022.
What chance does a privateer have?
Welcome to Supercross.
What do you say to a factory ride?
Tomac was one of the only riders to wheelie over the first turn little roller bump. A lot of guys were scrubbing it. He later was scrubbing it, but he was wheeling over it. We can see that Webb and Marv, they decided to scrub it. And watch Tomac. He seat bounces and right out of the corner as he's accelerating. It is just so cool that Rob right there is getting over. And this thing is 3 feet tall. It's not as big as the whoops, but still a large obstacle of a single to just be wheeling over to get into the next series. Then he seat bounce again, but you can see he's landed midway to the start of the next jump by not scrubbing it and still has the speed in order to triple quad. Pretty dang cool. The next one that we have isn't notably as interesting, but a lot of the 250 riders were doing exactly what Tomac is doing, is where he's going. This is right before the finish line. It is a triple, and a lot of the guys were wheel tapping it. And you can see Tomac just wheel tapping it. A lot of the 450s had enough oomph, but they had to seat bounce it because this is a much smaller launch ramp. So you couldn't preload. You couldn't stand up over it and still triple over it. They literally had to squat the bike with a seat bounce in order to get enough oomph to jump over it. This time, Tomac was planning on tripling all the way over it, but he just barely tapped that rear wheel. And because he's on the gas, it prevents that from just getting into a huge endo. You can see it bounces that front end down, and he's just off to the races, continuing to just keep it WFO. And this was interesting. After the triple, forgive the quality here of the 1080p, Tomac is leaning over, and actually his foot peg creates sparks from the dirt. He's got his feet on the pegs, and his foot peg is actually giving away. It just means he's going in there super, super fast. Saturday night, guys were doubling, tripling. Sunday night, guys were scrubbing, double, triple, double out. Tomac started doing this in the later part of the races, of the sprints. This was sprint 3, and you have a deep rut. This is the same corner that I showed you at the beginning of the video where he was wheeling over. Well, this time, watch him keep his feet on the pegs around the whole corner. Deep rut, but yet he is just on the pegs. Just barely lifts up that foot so that the foot peg has enough room to fold. Look, lift up, just barely lifts up that foot. And then he starts scrubbing it. We'll see that one in real time. Boom. Amazing. And last but not least, you've probably seen this before in some of my videos, Ken Roczen, coming through the whoops. These are during Super Bowl, the night where it was already groomed, and you can see that they look like concrete. They're nice and rolled, but it's a good slow-mo. He is entering the whoops incredibly fast, probably third, fourth gear, and you can see he is missing that second whoop, which is going to layer him on top. It's just wheeling into him, and if you're new to whoops and you start getting good at it, if you can start to wheeling into whoops, it's going to bounce that bike up just like the wheel tap earlier. You know, I was showing you this wheel tap by Tomac. This is just entering a whoop section, what they do. What happens to that front end? Boom. It gets them level. But if you have whoops thereafter, like another obstacle, it keeps you the da-da-da-da-da. Let's get back to Kenny. So he's wheeling, and he's going so fast that he's missing that second one. A lot of times you'll see guys, if they are not fast enough to wheelie over the second one, they will try to wheelie over the starter one Sort of what Tomac did at the beginning of this video, wheeling into there. You would wheelie into the whoops to get that going. So there's like 3 different ways of doing it, but all end up being incredibly fast. Okay, Kenny wheelies over that one, and watch when his rear wheel hits it, it's going to line him up perfect. Boom. It drops the front end, and now he is horizontal, ready to just use this as a straightaway. And we'll get further down this section here, and I want you to notice how high he is on these whoops. These are incredibly scary whoops. They look like they're 69 feet tall. But watch, he'll actually be accelerating through the whoops, and at the end of it, he misses one. Okay, I believe it's this one. Look at this. Boom. Front wheel misses one of the whoops at the end. This would be catastrophic if he didn't have just the forward momentum and honestly a perfect setup. This genuine Honda is an amazing piece of machinery. It should be in a museum. But boom, that rear wheel hits, and what should it do? It should drop this front wheel down. But because he's squeezing the motorcycle and he is just WFO, that bike actually accelerates. Boom. And you can see the front end drops lower than it has on the other whoops. See how high he is? Boom, boom, boom. But because he missed this one, what happens? Boom, it kicks him down. And then boom, and he actually misses the last one there. Perfect execution. So the next example I'm going to use is Chris Blows. This was a dude that had an amazing night one. Fastest guy. He's the definition of you can be the fastest rider on the track and not win the overall. Blows is known for having a good whoop technique. He mastered the craft in the Arena Cross series because they're known for huge whoops. This is just a larger set of giant Arena Cross whoops. You can see his technique, squeezing the bike. He's up front in that attack position. His pegs, his feet are on the pegs with his toes, which is perfect because if he's a little bit shorter, we don't want that ass end to kick him and make him endo off. Watch him enter the whoops. He actually misses that second whoop. And then the rear wheel hits that second one, which lines him up. But because he doesn't have as much speed as Roczen, boom. He's not quite as level. If he was going a couple miles an hour faster, he would be more horizontal. But then he drops, and here's where it just gets bad. This next whoop, his back end, because it bounced, because he was much lower hitting that fourth whoop, his rear end ends up missing this last whoop, or at least this next one. Front wheel hits it, but notice his rear wheel does not. So what should kick him up and keep him horizontal, now he's going to hit the bottom of the next whoop. And what's even worse is now his front wheel misses the next whoop. So it all started with his back wheel missing a whoop, and then now the front wheel's missing a whoop. So it was a double-edged sword. Not only did his rear end miss it, but now his front wheel is missing it, and he's way on the bottom here. So there's going to be a huge rebound, especially with these 69-foot-tall whoops. Boom. And it just over the bars. Bummer to see. But this is Creative Lines. Make sure you like and subscribe. Got lots of content coming. Keep it tuned to MX Unfiltered. Bra-da-da-da-da-whoa!